Today we're looking at two different detective shows that are going head to head, competing with the exact same time slot on the exact same day, the first of which is True Detective Season 4. The first season of True Detective is one of the best TV seasons of all time in any genre, but especially detective fiction. It definitely is one of the most cinematic shows ever made, with an amazing cast, Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey, and it's one of the most memorable shows ever. Very compelling mystery, and it had philosophy and humor, but also was extremely dark and twisted at the same time. All of these things coalesced into one of the most memorable shows ever. From the first episode, the first 10 minutes of that show, you were instantly hooked. It was an incredible run, and the following seasons, they made it an anthology series. Season 2 was okay, Season 3 was a little bit better, but nothing quite matched that first season. It was just so perfectly crafted and amazing, and I don't think that that's a particularly controversial statement. I think most people that have watched that season agree with that. So one of the greatest film noir TV shows of all time is now returning in Season 4, and we also got a new show called Monsieur Spade, which is a sequel to a film noir film from the 1940s called The Maltese Falcon. If you're a film person, especially if you love film noir, you've probably seen this film, but for most people, they probably have no idea it exists. But this movie is incredible. It's on Tubi. It's one of the best well-written films of all time, and it's a classic film noir. Everybody's hiding something, double crosses left and right. It's about a private detective called Sam Spade. So we got this new show that's a sequel. It takes place decades later in France, and we're going to get to that at the end. I know most people watching this are probably going to want to see my opinion on True Detective. So far we've only got the first episode. It's hard to judge a full season based on one episode, but I will say I do not have the same feeling that I had with the episode 1 of True Detective, where I was instantly hooked and could not get enough and just binged the show right through the end. I didn't watch it while it was airing. I watched it all in one go after the fact. Absolutely loved it. I couldn't imagine waiting a week between episodes. That's how much I love that show. I don't get anything close to that in this show here. So the big flaw is our main cast. We got Jodie Foster and Callie Reis, and they are both very tough as nails women, and in different ways. You know, we got Callie Reis, who's the more physical one, and at least they got an actress who used to be a boxer, I believe. She did professional fighting, so she's a tough lady for sure. Jodie Foster sells it as far as being a tough as nails detective. She doesn't have the same physicality, but her personality is very aggressive. She's intelligent and all that. But these characters, in my opinion, are very one note, and they're very not compelling in the sense that there isn't a lot of range there, and that's probably the biggest flaw with this show. I love the setting. We are in Alaska. It's a very desolate place. It's very cold. I could just feel the cold just looking at the screen. I like the animal imagery, and it almost feels like The Thing. There's even, you can see a DVD of The Thing in the background of one of the scenes here. But the mystery that they're setting up is fine for a setup, you know. But really what kills the show is the characters. But we're in a scientific lab, and they're researching ice. They're digging up ice and analyzing it, looking for the origin of life, and also signs of climate change, or the causes, or I don't remember. Something about climate change. They're studying it, and basically there's a character that starts shivering in the background of one guy's TikTok video, and then he turns around real creepily and says, "She's back," and then the lights go out, and it almost feels supernatural. I hope they're not really going for a supernatural thing, because True Detective in the past has been fairly grounded, and I don't think that would really be a great fit, but I'm sure that that's not the route they're going down, that there is actually going to be a logical explanation for everything, but we don't really know that for sure at this point. That's how it feels. Basically, a guy comes to deliver stuff, and everybody's gone, and there's a tongue hiding under the kitchen counter, basically. So there's a tongue there, and it's very convenient that this guy finds the tongue, because he just so happens to like drop something or something. Very convenient, you know, but you know, we'll take it. It's TV after all. That's fine for a setup. I'm okay with it at this point. I'm not like hooked like I was with the first season of the original, but I'm like, okay, we can get there. But then we're introduced to Callie Reis's character, and basically she's like, I'm standing up for women and all of that, and that's how you're supposed to like her, I suppose, because a woman got hit by a man, and then the woman hit the man back, and then she arrests the man, and that's that opening scene there. So fine, fair enough, but like I said, she's very one note. She's just like, I'm the tough one, and she's got a mysterious past in the military that's going to be revealed, and she's hung up on this cold case of somebody who was brutally murdered, who was an activist, and she wants to really find out, and she keeps bringing up, like, they bring up, like, race a lot in this show, and it's in a ham-fisted, kind of cliched way, in my opinion. She's like, oh, if she was white, they would have done a better investigation, and all this stuff, and, you know, and there's other references to that in this show, too, where, like, she calls Jodie Foster white as an insult, and, Jodie Foster had a similar cultural insult. There's this younger detective who, his wife or girlfriend or whatever is like, I can't believe I fell for a white boy. It's just repetitive at this point. But basically, the bulk of this episode is setting up these characters, and I don't really like anybody that much. I mean, I admire Jodie Foster's character's intelligence, and it does make sense that they're all very tough because it is a harsh environment, and that would breed rough people as well. So it's not out of place per se. But there are certain things that I feel like, I don't know if they're trying to add complexity, but I feel like they want you to like these characters. So Jodie Foster has an adopted daughter. I guess there was a drunk driver killed her parents or something. That's the implication, I think. And there's a scene here where basically this girl, I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, but she seems like she's 18 based on context clues, and she has a girlfriend who is 16, underage, and they made special videos of their bedroom activities. Illegal CP is what that is. And I have to bring up the, like, gender politics of this because it's all tough women all the time. That's what the show's about. And here we got a woman who, if she's 18, if you made an 18-year-old man doing the same thing to a 16-year-old girl making a video, it wouldn't be this, oh my god, so quirky and innocent. No, it's like, lock him up, you know? It's just like, I don't know, they want us to like this character, but that's the P to the E to the D to the O behavior, in my opinion, and just because she's a woman, that doesn't make it okay, okay? Right? I mean, but the show wants us to like these characters, though. And the same thing with Callie's character here, and she's digging up the past about, there's a lot of dialogue where it's like, things the characters already know that they're talking about, it's just kind of, like, forced, and there's a scene here where Callie's character is having relations with her boyfriend, or just hooking up with this guy, and she forces him against his will to completion, doesn't let him pull out, and they're not using protection. Use protection, just a PSA if you need to know that. And I've been reliably informed by feminists on the internet that if a man does this, it is the R word. And I agree with that, honestly. That's what she did, okay? And I'm supposed to like this character. I get you want to have characters that are flawed, but you give them a bunch of things that they're doing wrong, and they don't have that same charisma or any, like, complexity or anything interesting. It's just very one note. So I don't really care for any of the characters at this point. I kind of like this young detective guy. He has to go against his dad, who seems to be kind of shady. They're both detectives, and the dad seems to be hiding stuff, and he's keeping files in his house and not returning them, and blah, blah, and he has to break in and steal it. So, yeah, I'm not that big on the characters. That's the biggest flaw here. I'm not hooked, but I do think the mystery's fine. You know, the people disappearing and all that is good, but we got, like, weird hallucinations and dream scenes, and they want us to think it's supernatural. Like, this lady finds the dead bodies, and she's like following somebody who's dead, a ghost, and it's just like a bit much. But then there's like a final image of dead bodies in the snow. These heads in the snow, frozen. It's an awesome image, and it's cool. And I'm looking forward to seeing more about that. But honestly, I'm not that hooked on that show. I'm not that excited right now. I give it like a 5, honestly. Like, the characters is the key. I love the setting. I love the cinematics. I love the imagery here and the dark, gross stuff. I'm into it. Characters, not so much. And unfortunately, that's most of the screen time is about the characters. Now we're going to switch over to talking about something I actually really like, which is the Maltese Falcon. This movie from the 40s is considered one of the best film noir movies of all time, just one of the greatest movies of all time as well. It's directed by John Huston, who wrote the script. He's one of the great film auteurs from the early days of the film industry, and he wrote a timeless script here. All of the characters are double-crossing each other. Everybody's got something to hide. The main character is a private detective, and a femme fatale named Bridget comes to him and basically lies to him a bunch and gets him involved in they're going after this artifact called the Maltese Falcon. It's worth a lot of money, and people get murdered and blah blah. And it's a great movie. It's free on Tubi. If you want to check it out, it's awesome. So I love this movie. It still holds up to this day, in my opinion. You just have to put up with the fact it's in black and white. But other than that, Humphrey Bogart plays the main character. He was a very famous actor back in his day, and he was a great leading man, and he created this character who is kind of cold and detached, but at the same time, he's got a kind of playful aspect to him where he's also like double-crossing everybody, but he kind of ends up doing the right thing in the end, but ultimately he's out for himself, and that's kind of what makes him interesting, is that complexity, and there's depth to his character as well. So he falls in love with the femme fatale and ends up getting swept into this. And then, spoiler alert, we kind of have to spoil a little bit of the ending just so we can talk about the show. At the end, he ends up giving up the femme fatale that he may or may not have fallen in love with to the police because, he finds out what she did. I'm not going to spoil it exactly in case you want to watch the movie. But that's where we pick up here many years later, decades down the line. We got Monsieur Spade in France, and he's delivering Bridget's child to her father. The daughter is going to the father, supposedly, and we get this kind of exposition dump. You don't necessarily need to watch the movie to watch the show, but I think it will be more meaningful. But in this scene, we find out that Sam Spade was hired by Bridget to deliver the child to France, to who she believes is the father, and supposedly Bridget had died. I suspect that that's not going to end up being the case, and of course, everybody's lying, everybody's hiding something. That's what this show is going to be. I'm assuming. We haven't really seen that yet, but I know that's how it's going to go. But supposedly, Sam Spade helped Bridget get off on parole, get out of prison, and then she ended up running away from parole and going to Istanbul, which is where at the end of the movie the bad guys go to try to, or they want to go to find the Falcon again, the really valuable artifact. So that's where she ended up going, and supposedly she died in a train derailment, and that is basically how this show starts. And he's delivering the child. They can't find the father, so the child ends up going to a convent or a nunnery or some type of a religious place, and then Sam Spade ends up getting married again, and then he's getting older. He's finding out he may have emphysema, so he needs to stop smoking. But really, what you're here for is very clever, quippy dialogue back and forth, very well written. The character Sam Spade here is played by Clive Owens, and his take on the character is slightly different, in that playful aspect is kind of toned down, and he is a much more full of regret. There seems to be things that have transpired since the movie that made him a bit darker of a character. He was a bit callous in the movie where his partner gets killed off in the first 10 minutes, and he kind of just he doesn't cry, he doesn't get upset about it, he just does what he does. So that's kind of it. But something has happened to him since then, I'm sure we'll find out, that made him kind of regret the man he became. So we got really smartly written dialogue in the show. There's not a lot of action. There's mostly talking, but I'm hanging on every word. I want to see what goes on. My only real criticism is Clive Owen is a little bit flat in his delivery, but I actually kind of like it from a film noir standpoint. It's just a perfect archetype. So here's the woman he ends up getting married to. There's some non-linear stuff going on, so you might get a little lost tracking with time, but I like that this show treats its audience like they're intelligent, and it feels a lot more sophisticated. And watching this before watching True Detective, I like this show a lot more. So I wanted to compare them in the same video because I ended up liking this show a lot more. Here we got some of the playful aspect of Sam Spade, coming out of the pool in the nude and all that. So it's an intriguing show, and I want to find out more about what happened, but it is a slow burn. It is definitely going to take a while to get there because he ends up getting swept up in a case again at the end. He finds a brutal murder site at the end of the episode, but it does take a bit to get there. So if you're patient with it and you want to hear characters and great dialogue, I would recommend Monsieur Spade as of this first episode. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. But that is my review of True Detective Season 1 and Monsieur Spade Episode 1. But here's my theory about why these shows are premiering at the same time on the same day. So one thing about the Maltese Falcon, like I said, you can watch it on Tubi right now. You will find out that this movie was made by Warner Brothers back in the day. Who owns HBO Max? That would be Warner Brothers, okay? And Monsieur Spade here it's premiering on AMC Plus and of course AMC on cable. And they, most certainly the people writing the show and producing it would have to pitch the show to a bunch of different networks. They used to work for Netflix, they wrote The Queen's Gambit, and they also used to work for HBO, and they created the show Oz. So they've worked for a variety of networks, and they most certainly, I think, pitched this show to HBO, and it sounds like they passed on it. And I think that they could have been like, hey, you guys made this movie back in the day, it would be perfect fit for your streaming service and your premium cable, but they ended up passing on it. I think they probably did that because the show is not as well known, or the character rather is not as well known nowadays as it should be, in my opinion, known very well. But that is, I think, why they're premiering on the same day, because we know that Warner Brothers can be a little bit petty when it comes to premiering their movies and shows at the same time as competing pieces of content. We saw this with the Barbenheimer phenomenon. For those who don't know, Christopher Nolan directed Oppenheimer. He used to work with Warner Brothers a lot. Most of his films were released by Warner Brothers, and he had a falling out with them, very publicly so, because he did not like how they handled the pandemic, releasing movies simultaneously. His movie Tenet was released simultaneously in theaters and on streaming, and he felt that he hates streaming. He loves the theater. He wants people to experience cinema together. That's the way it's meant to be seen, in his opinion. And he probably felt a little slighted because he most likely gets a percentage of the ticket sales. So he probably felt like they were trying to cheat him a little bit by doing that. So for a variety of reasons, he ended up not working with Warner Brothers for Oppenheimer, and he ended up going with Comcast, and it was extremely successful. But I think Warner Brothers, they made the Barbie movie. They had all these analytics saying Barbie's going to be a big hit. They decided to premiere it on the same day. They're trying to hurt Oppenheimer by premiering it on the same day. It ended up working out for both of the studios very well, but I personally think, and there are insiders who have said this stuff, but, consider it a rumor, but in my opinion, it seems like they put that movie, Barbie, releasing on the same day as Oppenheimer, as a slight against Christopher Nolan. And we know that they've done this with the show The House of the Dragon. They premiered that show the same time, not the exact same day, but while Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power on Amazon was premiering. They decided to premiere their competing fantasy show on the Sunday after Lord of the Rings was premiering on Amazon. And they absolutely murdered Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power in the ratings and quality and critic reviews. It was just so much better than The Rings of Power. That's not even a comparison. So I think that there's been multiple cases now of them doing this, so I think that's why they're premiering the same day. And I think it's a shame that, it's also partly that AMC is just losing a little bit of influence in television. They kind of set the standard for cable TV for a while, but now cable's falling away, and their streaming service never really caught on because there isn't any must-have thing on it other than Walking Dead, and that's not as popular as a franchise as it used to be. So I love Shudder, but Shudder's a niche market, right? Shudder's their horror outlet that is included in AMC Plus. They do a lot of good horror stuff on there, but you gotta be a horror fan to really love that. So there's not that same mass appeal. Plus, people don't know this character Sam Spade very well, as they should know the character, in my opinion, because it's just such a great movie. You need to see this. If you take anything away from this video at all, watch the Maltese Falcon. Forget about this True Detective. Maybe it'll get better as it goes. Let me know if you guys want me to review it as it goes on. But I'm liking Monsieur Spade. I give it like the first episode is like a 7 out of 10. Maybe it would even be an 8 later if there's a payoff for everything. This episode might be elevated by things that follow. This True Detective, I'd say 5, maybe 6 if I'm feeling generous. I'm just not that into it. The characters aren't great, but the setting is awesome, and the cinematography is cool, and I love being in Alaska. Jodie Foster is good at acting. She sells it, but the characters are very one note, and the writing's not all that amazing. It's very forced, in my opinion. Whereas this show, it's complex, and every scene has things you can break down, and all the characters are hiding something, and I'm always trying to figure out what's going on in the scene. It's just so much better to my ears hearing this dialogue, guys. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Which of these shows have you watched? Have you seen this movie, The Maltese Falcon? Let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, it's been your boy Shuggy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.